BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello, I'm Andy Burke and this is the Scottish Football Podcast. All the news, views and analysis you need on Tuesday the 3rd of June. And Elvis has re-entered the building.
We're all busy speculating about when Rangers might make their managerial appointment, and Dundee catch us all off guard with Steven Pressley. He's been named to replace Tony Docherty.
But will the appointment of Steven Pressley leave Dundee fans all shook up? Scotland face Netherlands tonight in their final Women's Nations League match.
There's going to be moments in the match where it doesn't go right, but that's where we are right now. But it's not losing faith and know that we've taken one step forward and we just need to keep taking that step forward.
What changes will Melissa Andreatta make after her first match ended in defeat? Plus, an old face returns in the Highlands.
Some concrete news from Ross County. There is a change with former boss John Robertson being adding to the coaching staff. He, of course, had a 4-month stint in charge of the club in 2005.
The action may have stopped on the pitch, but we'll keep you up to date with all the latest transfer movements.
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sports Scotland.
Lots to discuss today with Craig Telfer, presenter of A View from the Terrace. Craig, how are you getting on?
I'm very well. Good to see you this morning.
And Joelle Murray, former Hibs and Scotland defender. How are you doing, Joelle?
I'm good, Andy, thanks.
I just want to place on record that those Elvis lines at the top were not written by me, so any flack for those should be directed towards our producers. Right, guys, let's start with Steven Pressley, new Dundee manager. And Joelle, Dundee surprised us all by sacking Tony Docherty at the end of the season, and I think they've surprised most of us with this appointment. Steven Pressley checks in at Dens Park. What do you make of that?
Yeah, they certainly have surprised us. It's becoming a theme coming out of Dens Park recently, but yeah, it's an appointment that I don't think anyone expected, especially given Sunday night they were reported to be speaking to David Healy and obviously prior to that Sean Maloney and various others. So a very, very surprising appointment coming out of Dens Park indeed.
What do you think, Craig? Did you see this one coming?
No, I didn't see this one coming at all, although I was reading the message boards, and when he left Brentford's academy on Thursday, there was some Dundee fans were saying that, oh, surely not. Surely we're not going to go for Pressley, and it's come to pass. And I don't really like saying this, but I don't think I've seen as unanimous a negative reaction to a manager's appointment. Having read stuff on social media, having read the forums, I haven't seen a single person who's looking forward to seeing Pressley coming in. I think at best the comments I've seen are saying, well, let's see how he does. But it's a very, I don't even think it's a divisive appointment. It's certainly left field, and I think he really needs to hit the ground running when the season begins, because the fans, going by what we've seen so far, are aghast at what the club are doing at the moment. Yeah,
Joelle, I was just flicking through some of the comments on social media, and exactly as Craig said, it's underwhelming, might be a generous way to describe the action. Steven Pressley has got a job on his hands here to win over a lot of Dundee fans who maybe weren't even convinced that Tony Docherty should have got the bullet. So, as Craig says, he really needs to hit the ground running here.
Yeah, I would agree. I think they've went from a very experienced, a very talented manager with a proven track record in Tony Docherty to now Steven Pressley, who's obviously spent 4 years down south in a very different role, head of individual player development. He's coming in with a title of head coach. He's coming in alongside David Longwell, who will also come in and have that kind of player development focus. So I think it aligns with their restructure, their rebuild. You can see that they're really looking to focus on that young talent and nurture that. But it is a very, very left field appointment, and like you said, I think he has a big job on his hands to try and overturn and change those immediate opinions and reactions from the Dundee fan base.
Yeah, I mean, Tony Docherty in his last interviews before he left, Craig, identified recruitment as something that needed to improve, and Dundee needed a good summer on that front. So this appointment points to that Pressley has been working in that field, and that's what Dundee really want to maximise.
Definitely. I think with Pressley and David Longwell, as Joelle said, both of them have spent the last couple of years working like in academy football in England. And I think that by bringing both of them, that significantly points the direction that Dundee are probably going to be going in. I think they'll be looking to try and uncover gems from English academies that perhaps have fallen off the radar, perhaps that haven't had the acclaim that they might have had, and they hope to pick them up, polish them up, and sell them on. It's certainly a gamble. I think that with Tony Docherty leaving, I didn't see it coming. However, I know that having spent a bit of money on signing Simon Murray, like defensively, Dundee were a bit of a shambles last season, as good as Tony Docherty had been previously. So it was a surprise, and it wasn't a surprise that he was moving on. But like bringing in Pressley, that's definitely a different direction to go down. And I think it's I don't like using this term, but it's a more holistic approach that the club might be doing with the recruitment. So very big summer ahead at Dens Park.
Steven Pressley, when he was at Falkirk, did have a track record of promoting young players. Do we think, guys, that's the avenue that Dundee will look to go down to bring in more young players and hopefully establish that model of giving them first team football, Joelle, and maybe selling them on for a profit?
Yeah, 100%. I think that's definitely the route that they're now looking to go down. And like you said, Steven Pressley did have a great track record of doing that there at Falkirk, a club who still are doing that now. So yeah, it's definitely a route that they will be looking to go down. Certainly the two appointments suggest that. What Steven Pressley might have from working in his previous role down south is that network of really good young players that like Craig said, were either at Brentford or out with that he has knowledge of, connections with, and will be looking to try and bring the other side of the border to try and progress, develop, nurture, get them playing for Dundee, and like you said, sell them on for a fee. So it does suggest that is the route and the model that Dundee are now looking to go down.
And I suppose as well that model is working to an extent. You see like Lyle Cameron moving on to Rangers, Josh Mulligan having been linked with bigger clubs. Dundee do have some talented young players there, and I suppose that we've seen from Presley's track record, he is very good at that. I remember that Falkirk team that he had when after he retired and moved into them, there were some really, really good players in there. That was quite an exciting team he was able to build in a shoestring. If he's able to harness that good feeling that he had at Falkirk again, then brilliant. But I think his track record since then has been quite spotty at best. I think his last 3 roles, he left them all within a year. So it's I keep saying it'll be interesting to see. I think this will be really, really interesting to see how this develops.
Yeah, and Joelle, he's been away from Scottish football for a little while now. Does that pose any concerns, the game? I mean, you might argue if you know Scottish football, you know the game, but he's been away a little while, he's been working in different environments. Is that a little bit of concern, or do you think he knows the game well enough up here that he'll be able to get up to speed?
Yeah, it might be a little bit of a concern. I think he's certainly been away from the game up here for a while, but he played in it. He managed it for a long time, and there's no denying that, of course, he was down south, but he would have still been having an eye on what's happening up here. He's obviously got a relationship with Gordon Strachan, who, of course, is at the club as well. So there's no denying that, although he's not been working within the game from a kind of immediate perspective, he will be have been looking across it from a Brentford perspective, but also from a personal perspective as well. So I don't think, in my opinion, that should cause much of an issue.
Yeah, I mean, Gordon Strachan's an important point that Joelle makes, Craig, and he's an important figure at Dundee, and he's clearly gone with a man he knows very well from their time together at Celtic.
Yeah, definitely. I think this is. I think it's one of the appointments. It could really yield dividends here. They could like stumble upon a group of players, bring them through, develop them, and turn Dundee into a really attacking team. But if it doesn't work out, then I think it's Gordon Strachan and John Nelms, the chief exec at Dundee, will have a lot of questions to answer about, one, if you get rid of a popular manager in Tony Docherty, and then two, you replace him with someone who doesn't work out. So it's a big call from Strachan, but I think it's from having read the statement on the club website. This is, I think, recruiting Pressley, they're completely trying to revolutionise how Dundee work as a football club. So, very, very big call.
Right, let's talk about the Scotland women's national team, who take on the Netherlands tonight after a 1-0 defeat to Austria on Friday at the final Nations League game, Joelle, of what has been a very, very difficult campaign. Now 7 games without a win. How important is it to just get any sort of result tonight, just to end this run and finish with a bit of a confidence boost?
Yeah, I think that's massively important. It's been a very disappointing campaign. Obviously, the result on Friday night sealed the relegation from Group A, so there's no denying it. There's no hiding from it. It's been a very underwhelming, frustrating, disappointing campaign for the national team, and it's maybe one of those ones where we may need to reset our expectations. As what we've been experiencing, is that now our reality? Do we need to reset, refocus, and get back on a journey that gets us back to where we were in 2017 and 2019? So yeah, very frustrating on Friday night. I think there was a lot of hope, especially with Melissa Andreatta coming in, and there was a freshness, there was a positive vibe, and I think that result and performance was disappointing, but we can't be naive enough to think that there was going to be a massive overhaul and an upturn in performance and certainly results in the space of half a camp. So I think we need to remain positive. We need to try and take something from this evening's game. It will be difficult. The Netherlands are a fantastic team with top class players, but yeah, I think we need to take some form of positivity, whether it be a result or an improvement in the performance, so that we can see something to then take into the next camps or in the next campaign.
Yeah, I mean, Scotland always had a big task stepping up to this level, Craig, and as Joelle alludes to there, it's maybe just been a step too far for this current team.
Yeah, I think against teams like Germany and Netherlands, these are two of the best sides on the continent, and tonight's game is going to be really difficult. But I think that the games against Austria, I think that we would have looked to them to have taken something from those matches, and I think that the result on the last week wasn't fantastic. But I think the performance as well wasn't really good either from Scotland. I think that Austria looked quite slick. They were able to pop the ball around, and if it wasn't for some really fantastic goalkeeping from Lee Gibson, the scoreline could have been a lot more severe. So I think this evening I think this is just an opportunity for Melissa Andreatta to really familiarise herself with her players a bit more. You know, she'll get to see them against high calibre opposition. She'll get to maybe look at their mentality, their work rate, their off the ball, how they organise one another. So I think if anything else, this is just going to be a chance for Scotland to finish the Nations League campaign on a high. Send Rachel Corsie out. Is a fantastic player for Scotland. I think this is her last game for the nation before she retires. Give her something a nice memory to send her up the road with, and just use this as an opportunity to look to the future and then rebuild for the next camp.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think Melissa Andreatta will have learned from that Austria game, and even our short time in training with the players? A few new players got a chance, Joelle, against Austria. Do you expect that to happen this evening? And what do you think Andreatta's initial impressions will be of the squad at her disposal?
Yeah, I think initially she said after the game that was the baseline. She saw things that she needs to evidently work on with the squad. It's different having the squad in training and seeing things and doing things, but it's then how they then transition and adapt in a match. So yeah, she said she's now got a baseline. I think there was players that started for the first time who you could see glimpses of positivity. I think Caroline Weir and Kathleen McGovern playing in the 9 and 10 looked like they were trying to link up as and when they could. I think when we see more of the ball in the final third against opponents, we'll see that link up come to fruition even more. But on Friday night, a lot of the times they were kind of playing off scraps. So I think a lot of positives to take. Mia Macaulay coming off the bench, youthful player playing with no fear, had a great impact. Emma Watson, another young player, still only 19, another fantastic impact from the bench. But there's no denying that tonight's game will be a completely different entity. I think a lot of people calling for those young players to start, but that's a big ask. It's a big challenge against a team who are currently ranked 10th. A team who will be looking for a kind of bounce back from that 4-0 defeat against Germany on Friday evening. So, yeah, I think although it was a disappointing performance, I think those kind of instances of players coming off the bench, making the impact and showing what they can do gives a little bit of positivity. But I think tonight's approach will be very, very different to Friday's approach, certainly indeed.
Just a word, Joelle, on Rachel Corsie. As Craig mentioned, it's her last appearance for Scotland this evening. She's been such a huge player for the national team for so long. Just a word on her career, and I suppose that'll be a good motivation for the players to try and send her on her way with a good performance. Yeah,
Rachel's been an outstanding player. She's been a role model, someone I've certainly looked up to throughout my career. 155 caps coming onto the pitch on Friday night. It was a very fitting kind of occasion for her to mark that with her final kind of appearance at Hampden. And I don't think it was a token gesture, not at all. I think you could see when Rachel came onto the pitch, she's still got a lot of value to add to the game. She feels the time is right to step away from this side of the game, but a fantastic career that she's had. She's been a pioneer. She's drove the game forward on and off the pitch, and her presence will certainly be missed, especially at that level, especially when you're lacking that kind of experience, top class experience. So yeah, very fitting that she managed to come on. As I say, not a token gesture, because when she came on, she showed a calmness. She was very cool and composed on the ball, and it was great to see her come on to the pitch and get the reception that she did.
Right, guys, let's get back to some of the coaching changes that have been going on in Scottish football. Ross County have added John Robertson to their coaching staff, while confirming they're sticking with Don Cowie as manager despite their relegation from the Premiership. Craig, what do you make of this move from County?
Very interesting. Very interesting. This is another eyebrow-raising decision from a club that play in dark blue. I thought that keeping Don Cowie on, I think that prior to Ross County going on that horrendous winless streak that ultimately led to the relegation, I thought County had really stumbled onto something with Cowie, but the performances over the latter quarter of the season were really poor, and I thought the performances against Livingston in particular, just they were relegated with a bit of a whimper. And then I think the decision, you're not just bringing in John Robertson, but it's Don Cowie's brother was in the coaching staff, so you've let go of the manager's brother to bring in someone else. I don't know how that will have gone down in the Cowie household, but John Robertson's certainly a very experienced character. You know, he's managed Ross County in the past, and I think he's having met John Robertson, just a really interesting, really quite inspirational figure as well. Like he talks really interestingly about how to motivate players and how to get them inside and how to get a group of people all pulling in the same direction. So I think it's certainly an interesting appointment, but I think it's how that dynamic will work in Dingwall. I think that's the interesting thing to see. I think that County will be looking to make an immediate return to the Premiership next season. I think their recruitment, like most other teams, will have to be absolutely spot on here after letting go of so many players. But it's this was keeping Cowie was something I didn't foresee, and then replacing his brother with John Robertson, that's certainly something I didn't foresee either.
Yeah, we're getting surprises all over the place in Scottish football right now, aren't we? Joelle, tell me how you would feel if you were in a dressing room and you were in this situation. A new guy coming in, a new experienced head coming in to assist the manager. Do you think great? Another, as Craig says, inspirational figure in John Robertson, a legend of Scottish football. Do you think great? Another big voice in the dressing room? Or does it undermine the manager a wee bit to think, well, he needs a bit of help here? Does that maybe bring him down in the eyes of the players? What do you think?
I think if you're a player up there, I think from seeing and hearing what I have, the players certainly respect Don. So that's maybe the compromise. We'll keep Don on, a manager who when they appointed him, and they still speak very highly of him, had high hopes for. So maybe that was the compromise, bringing John Robertson in. Like Craig said, bold move, getting rid of Paul Cowie, Don's brother, along with Karl Tremarco. But as I said, maybe that was a compromise to keep Don in the job. We'll couple that with a very, very experienced person in John Robertson, someone of course who knows the club. I think there was a quote after it was kind of out that John Robertson had experience of recruitment in the Highlands. So I think all of his experience, all of his knowledge kind of played a part in his recruitment. And as I say, it was maybe a compromise that Don stays in the job. We'll pair him with a very experienced person in John Robertson, but that is at the expense of, unfortunately, his brother in Karl Tremarco.
Yeah, big moves at Ross County, and we still wait, Craig, for the big news. Well, there's been news in the last few days at Rangers as they restructure the club. Kevin Thelwell's officially checked in. Dan Purdy's arrived at the club. Niels Coppin will be moving on as technical director, but we still await the identity of the new manager or head coach. I think is probably most likely. I think we're all ready for this search to come to an end and find out the identity of the new man at Ibrox.
I think so. It's been a fairly long, drawn-out process. I remember when Barry Ferguson was installed, you're thinking, well, the team, they've still got a good chance in Europe, but the league's probably beyond them, and it's a good opportunity for the club to, get a popular figure back into the dugout, and most importantly, buy time to figure out exactly the direction that you want to go in. And with Coppin moving on and more boardroom changes, it feels as though that when we get into the new manager, when can we actually kick on again? And I think that the further it goes on, you always have to compare Rangers to what Celtic are doing. I think Celtic will have had their transfer targets lined up months ago. Probably January, they were probably looking at the players they were going to bring in the summer. And I think as soon as they come back from their holidays, boom, these guys will be ready to make a move and bring in the players they need to strengthen. And Rangers just feel that they're so far behind it. So it's really get a move on and let's get the club going again.
Yeah, big summer at Ibrox, Joelle, isn't it?
Massive summer at Ibrox. You just don't know if behind the scenes there's a lot of conversations happening in terms of recruitment, and it may just be the first piece of the puzzle was the takeover. The next piece is the appointment of the manager or the head coach. And these conversations may well be 90% confirmed behind the scenes. So externally, it looks like Rangers are taking an extremely long time to kind of finalise and complete the process. However, behind the scenes, they may or may not have a lot of the process complete in terms of manager, recruitment, and then external structure. So who knows? But certainly, from my opinion, someone who's not an Old Firm supporter, it does seem a very long, drawn-out process, and I can imagine a lot of the fan base will be extremely frustrated at how long it's taken.
Well, who knows? Maybe today will be the day. Guys, great to chat as always. Thanks to Joelle Murray and to Craig Telfer. And thanks to you for listening. Remember, we're here with new episodes of the Scottish Football Podcast bright and early every day. So to make sure you don't miss out, subscribe on BBC Sounds and have push notifications turned on. on your phone. But for now, from Joelle, from Craig and from me, thanks for listening.
On BBC Sounds. From life aboard a Russian submarine to chairman of Hearts Football Club.
At this stage, he was the hero.
But as his controversial decisions escalated...
They said, we're going to sack George. And I'm going, you can't do this.
How did Vladimir Romanov go from Hearts saviour to a wanted man?
They caused a whole load of chaos and havoc.
Romanov, Tsar of Hearts. Listen now on BBC Sounds.